So chefs, as you know, the pork dish has been amazing, but our supplier has, for some reason, run out. So we're going to do something different, but staying with pork. And I think you've got a couple different samples in the house. So what I want to focus on today will be us coming up with the new pork dish. And the only thing that I would know for sure that I want to include is the mango mojo. And after that, I want you to give us feedback and see where we can go with this thing. We know that we want something that's bright and bold for the warm months we're still in. And aside from that, it's pretty much blank canvas. So put your wheels turning on what we can do with pork, and we'll do it. And we'll taste it, and we'll see if we love it. So samples are very different from each other. What do we got?
So we have a Iberico flank steak, heirloom. This came in yesterday, and this one is a dry aged pork chop.
And what we've been going with for the last little bit has been the porterhouse pork.
Yep.
With the peaches, and the peaches, of course, are moving out of season, which is life, right? We know because we work all the time with our Cooking with the Seasons seasonality chart, which has been part of our history forever and a day. This is in our minds as we think about where we're going to go, but we do have the mangoes, which came in beautiful. Do you have a preference between these two cuts?
I like the pork chop.
You like the pork chop?
Yeah, more traditional, more Ross.
And it's
Thinking about
jumps up on this plate like this
exactly.
big heroic
Exactly.
thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I like more of that, but
And with the mango mojo happening, do you have any first thoughts as far as how we might spice the chop?
not on the top of my head right now, but we can.
We can look around? Well, that's why we keep the dream sheets, so we can look on those dream sheets and think too.
Yeah.
Carlos, it looks like the vote is heavily toward the pork chop. What do you think?
I love it.
You're with it?
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so
we're still gonna taste the other one, right?
we can always taste, absolutely. So we're gonna cook it on the plancha, maybe?
Yep.
Okay,
Planche is on, ready to go.
all right. I'm favoring our very black beans as far as the starch element. Pork and black beans, I mean, we've been doing
Yep.
this forever and the guests love it. So I think we should start cooking and then see where our headspace takes us, because the proof is always in the flavor. So let's get to it. So what'd you go up with, Carlos?
So we got cumin, fennel, coriander, and allspice with a little bit of black pepper. Just gonna toast it, and then after toasted, we're gonna add some brown sugar, cayenne, and smoked paprika.
And what about some salt?
Salt, yeah,
Salt in the rub or salt chopped first and then rub?
in the rub.
Okay. So right now what we're doing is we're toasting the spices. What this does is it opens up the volatile oils, which create the aroma of the spices. If you were standing in the kitchen with us right now, me and the chefs, you'd be smelling the cumin in particular. And without this step, the spice is muted. Spices sit on shelves for a long time. They lose their opportunity to speak to you. By toasting them, they have the opportunity to speak to you. So we put the spices in the pan, toast them, and then we grind them every single time. And of course, we have to factor in the fact that we don't have the sugar in here
don't have
yet.
the sugar yet.
Okay, so let's put the whole thing with the sugar, the salt, and everything together before we actually make a final decision on that.
Sounds good.
All right, Juan, what are the spices that we have in here now?
We add cayenne pepper, paprika, and brown sugar to the mix.
So our sugar in this case is brown sugar,
Brown
so we have
sugar.
that kind of like
That caramelize
molasses kind of characteristic, right? Because if we just put salt and pepper on the pork chop, we have two notes. But when we have a spice rub, we have a chordal opportunity for flavor. There's that amazing part in the Beatles, A Day in the Life, where McCartney and I guess some other musicians and studio folks hit these pianos like the sound of 100 pianos. Boom! That is the effect of the power of a chordal progression. That's the effect of a spice rub. So what we're going to do is take, I want to taste it.
I want to taste it.
Okay. I think we're a little bit forward on the cayenne on that.
Spicy. Yeah.
So let's just add in a little bit more of everything else.
Yeah.
No more cayenne.
No problem.
And who said it? One of you said it. The mango. Was that you, Glorian? Or was you one? Anyone? One of you said it, and you're right. It's going to go up against the sweetness of the mango, and so that's what we have to think about. I mean, here we are in the midst of this whole menu. The guests are out there. They're looking at this thing and going, "What am I going to have for dinner tonight?" And they're reading all of these words, and they're making decisions. We know that what we have to do is find a place in the menu for a new version of pork, because some items going out of season, like the peaches in this particular thing. We also know that we live in a neighborhood now. For years, we're at the Ritz-Carlton. And at the Ritz-Carlton, we had this replenishment of the guests that were on business trips and things like that. Fabulous, wonderful. But the original restaurant, Norman's, was in a neighborhood as well. So it's kind of gone full circle. And we're back in the neighborhood, what's called the Dr. Phillips neighborhood of Orlando. And the guests are saying to us, we love what you're doing. We want to taste new dishes at least every week. So that's what we're going to do. Much better. Much more mellifluous. Carlos, you're going to man the pan, right?
Yep.
And you say you've got black bean reduction moving?
I got the black bean there.
And I need to make some mango mojo after one gets done, because we want to get the spice rub on the pork. Let that begin to sink into the meat. Perfect. That's what we need. If it looks like a lot, because it needs a lot, it is a massive piece of pork. What kind of fat we using? You guys got some particular fat in mind? Or you just, what would you use?
Beef fat. Beef fat.
I'd use pork fat because we want to reinforce the flavor of the pork. We're not going to use clarified butter. We're going to use pork fat because it's pork supporting pork. One of the most magical words I ever heard in the beginning days of being in Florida was mojo. I don't know, something about the way it repeated itself in those sounds. Mojo. Plus, it was spelled M-O-J-O, or is spelled M-O-J-O, which of course in Chicago and blues, that's mojo. And I was educated in the fact that mojo is a really traditional dish that's used in family cooking all around the Caribbean. And I wanted to incorporate it in something that I was doing. Coincidentally, at the same time, I was falling in love, deeply in love with tropical fruits, including the mango. So I decided in my own sort of like, I don't know the rules, so I'm going to break them anyway. I'm going to make a mango mojo. So we're going to make a mango mojo. This sauce has been part of the repertoire since the beginning of time. Got some beautiful mangoes here, much like we saw when we visit Robert is here. So, not many people know this, but this is a variety of mango. Many people think there's probably 3, 5, 8 varieties of mangoes. I've been to a place in South Miami that had 250 varieties of mangoes, all laid out on massive tables. A lot of the ones from Asia, I noticed, kind of had a more of a curvy shape to them than the roundish ones we see from Mexico. This particular variety is called a Kent mango. Very delicious, very common, easy to find, and easy to work with. Probably had mango for the first time down in Key West. That's where I was learning about so much of the tropical fruits. There was an amazing place. It was a diner sort of a place, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they had a painting over the counter where the cooks were down underneath, and the painting was up on the wall, and it had like 16 different tropical fruits done in watercolors. Mamey, mango, pineapple, tamarind, guanabana, fruits that I was just barely beginning acquainted with, and mango was one of them. And so I probably tasted mango for the first time in a setting much like that. Orange. I'm gonna squeeze the orange through the strainer. This strainer is called a chinois. It's very fine, normally used for like fine sauces and French cooking, but it also is in our kitchen, so I'm gonna use it right now. Make sure I don't get any seeds in my mango mojo. Another important element to the mango mojo are chilies. I grew up knowing about Mexican chilies like jalapenos. I didn't know much at all as far as Caribbean chilies. Scotch bonnets, habaneros are interchangeable. This is a very much more spicy chili than jalapeno. But that's not so important. To me, what's important is that it carries the Caribbean flavors. The people who grew up in the Caribbean, this is the chili pepper they grew up with. The seeds and what's called the placenta, this white part right here, this is where the majority of what's called the capsaicin exists in a chili, and that is the spiciest part. And I'm not going to toss these into the blender. Reason being is I really like seeing the little specks in the mango mojo, so I'm not going to strain that out or blend that. So we're going to come back and get the rest of the mango and some white wine. I'm using a Chardonnay. Reason being, you will oftentimes see or hear people talking about Chardonnay of having a lush tropical flavor. So I didn't want to come in with something like a Chablis or maybe something a little bit more dry like a Sauvignon Blanc. I wanted that lush tropical flavor because that's the flavor of mango as well. Now don't forget to get that juice that you pass through the strainer over there, combination of the juice of the orange and the mashed up mango, because that's an integral part of the mango mojo. So I've got that pureed right now, and what I'm going to do is adjust that thickness because I want it to flow onto the plate. So a little bit more. That's it. One of the simplest sauces I've ever created, if you will, although I don't really take credit for creating it. But it doesn't need to be complicated. It's just gorgeous fruit. And there we go. And what I'm going to do is put this into a bowl, pour in my mango puree. Beautiful, just luscious fruit. And the color of this against the plate is magical. Take a spoon, just work that in. You could add squeeze more of orange juice if you wished. But I'm liking this because I want to like the way this sits on the plate against that pork chop. Notice there's no salt in this. And temperature-wise, you don't heat this up. This is a room temp to cool room temp sauce. That is 98% about the flavor of the mango. That's why the mango has got to be luscious, ripe, totally tree ripened. You can't buy a green mango, take it from the store and expect it to get wonderful on your counter and much less your refrigerator. So that's it right there, mango mojo. Pork done, mango mojo done. Now the all important, what we call the very black beans, and you'll learn why we call them very black beans. Actually, Carlos, why don't you tell me about that?
Here, chef. So we have these black beans.
Classic way of cooking the beans,
Yeah.
right? Sofrito?
That's how we do it on Caribe. We just render bacon or jamon, which are ham, and just add vegetable, which is the sofrito, and make it with the stock, chicken stock, and just reduce it down until it comes thick and delicious.
And one thing that's different, and this is so tickles me, is that this kid was from the Midwest, and I got to love black beans just like everybody does. But I began to do something different with ours, which is that I made it with a lot more stock when I made it. And when I did that, I treated it more like a reduction sauce. And so what we do is we call these very black beans because who did that? And I'm just going to take a little bit of enrichment of butter, not much, just a notch, and a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Another thing that I might do is add a little bit of sherry vinegar because I love the way the acidity of the vinegar lifts everything.
You're right, chef. Cherry vinegar.
Oh, you read my mind. Okay, good. Sherry wine vinegar. Again, we're staying with the Caribbean or the mother countries of the Caribbean by using sherry wine vinegar. There's other fine vinegars, champagne vinegar, balsamic vinegar, apple cider vinegar. There's many, and you're seeing more in the stores all the time. But this dish is essentially Spanish, and so I'm going with what grows together, goes together, thinking as I put this together. Okay, so the dish is almost together. Envision it, see it in your mind's eye. The darkness of the beans, the darkness of the chop, the brightness of the mojo. What do you think the dish needs to maybe give it that pop? Because out there in the dining room, it's very different than in the kitchen, as we know. They have much more light. they're looking down and they're thinking, plus we want something that looks fresh and like
Mustard greens.
mustard greens.
Yes.
From a flavor standpoint, do you think that goes with what we're doing?
With the pork?
Yeah.
Yeah, it will go amazing.
So just a little bit of oil?
Yeah, a little bit of oil, salt.
Perfect. Okay, let's do
That's
that.
it.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go, chef.
These are from the local farm.
Yeah,
right?
there's two top farms here from Claremont, and I mean, we want to support our local farmers.
Yeah.
So we try to get our greens and how much we can from here, from the state, which is very important.
Okay, so we need a bowl, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of salt. So looking at this pork chop right now, I'm not seeing us slice the pork chop because it's on the bone.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Let them slice it. We're gonna give them a great knife to slice this, the big steak knife, and let them reveal out there. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's gonna look like mangled. So no, not a cut up pork chop. So let's go ahead and get the plate and start putting this baby together. I'm saying let's start with the beans, put the pork down, and see where the color needs to go mango-wise, all right? In a restaurant, we talk about 12 o'clock. The position at 12 o'clock for the guests. That means what is going to be plate position with this being 12 o'clock. If the guest is sitting at the table and this is 12 o'clock, that means the guest is here. Right now, the beans are at 12 o'clock. I don't know if it's going to remain that way. Maybe a tiny bit more. That's the starch for the dish right there. Let's put the pork on there. Remembering, key thing, most guests are what? Right-handed.
Yeah.
So we want it to make it simple for them to cut the meat. Which way do you see the meat going on the plate?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Next up is mango mojo. Well, we know this is super light and super delicious, and we know that people are going to want it for both the beans and the pork. Yeah? Mojo magic. Let's see it.
Let's see.
This is that moment in the composition of the plate where you may have worked 10, 12, 13 hours on this, but this final moment is the moment to make some big decisions on what you're going to do. Because once you commit to it, you got to be there. We know this mango mojo has got a lightness and refreshing aspect to it. Okay, you put on a nice amount, but I think that chop is so giant, Carlos. I want to just do a little bit more, not coming any further to the exterior of the rim because I do like that plate space that you've got, but I just want to tuck up a little bit more in there. So you leave your tweezers at home?
No, I feel more confident with my hand.
Okay. Well, I guess we lost one important element of understanding this dish. Forks. We're just kitchen beasts. What do we know? We just eat with our hands. Got forks for everyone, I see. Okay. It's tender. Good intramuscular fat. Keeps it from drying out. I think the one element that comes to mind for me is that because they're cutting the pork out there, they don't have the opportunity to do something that we would do if we were cutting a piece of meat in the kitchen, like we would with a duck breast or a lamb loin or many other things. We'd shingle that meat out, and then what would we do? We'd season it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, as an additional point of service, we have a little dish of some sort with a tiny spoon of some kind with some Maldon salt, so that as they slice, they can put a little bit of seasoning, because that's what the pork is crying out for, is a little bit more salinity to go into the interior of the meat. I happen to carry, and I could show it to you, I happen to carry this thing. It's like a little old-fashioned aspirin pack that you would have gotten, but it holds Maldon salt. So when I'm somewhere and they're a little short on the salt for me, I'm like, I got it. Don't worry. Don't even have to ask the server. It's a special kind of teamwork that goes into doing what we do in the kitchens. Teamwork is essential to every business, every endeavor, every baseball team, every band, every business, every school, all of it is. But there's something that captivated me very deeply about the kitchens. And it has to do with the way we work in that stressful environment that we find something we choose to do. There's something about having fire and knives and hot grease and the hectic amount of tickets coming in that appeal to a certain sort of breed of people. And that's the people that we are. You can cook like I do. You can cook in a professional kitchen, but don't let that stop you from cooking at home if that's not your thing. The primary ingredient in all of this is love and curiosity. Primary ingredients, let's put it that way. You've been with me as we've put this restaurant together. You've been with me watching the construction from the drywall and the dirt and the wires hanging out of the ceiling. And you've been with me as you've seen some of the architecturals laid back and glassware arriving and china arriving and the whole craziness of all of that. And now you've also been with me through the grand opening party where we raised money for a wonderful charity. And we had my dear friends, the fantastic chefs, Dean Fearing and Ming Tsai, come and join me, and master sommeliers also come and join us in the celebration of this brand new thing that is Norman's. The first Norman's opened in 1995. I began cooking in 1971. I've been doing this for 50 years, and folks, I'm a long way from being done.